On with us right now is Lee Greenwood. Hey, Lee, how are you?
Good, Bobby. Thank you.
It's really good to talk to you. You know, I've seen you a few times. I've played the same Opry as you a couple times, but I'm always a little too intimidated to come up and say hello because you are a guy that's been around forever, and I've always looked up to you.
Well, thank you. I'd hesitate to say that was ever necessary. I mean, the thing is like I'm just a normal guy from Sacramento, California. I'm a farmer. I'm usually in high cotton, and so you know, don't ever hesitate to come and say hi.
Next time, I will say hello whenever we're out of the pandemic and we're saying hello in person.
There you go.
You know, what's interesting, and I'm glad you came on because I want to talk about God Bless the USA because back in '84, it peaked at number 7 on the country chart. However, it finally hit number 1 on a chart for the first time ever in July of 2020. How crazy does that feel to you?
A little crazy. I mean, the common thing around Nashville was don't ever follow Lee Greenwood, first of all, because he has the anthem. And second of all, you know, I can't wait to see another crisis so that our song will do well on the charts. That's ludicrous. You know, the thing is, I wrote a song about America to be in a time of peace, and I wanted to unite the country if I possibly could. And here we are, you know, in 2020, where the song has had as much impact as it ever has since release in 1983. And I couldn't be more pleased if it serves that purpose. We have social unrest and there's people confused about the direction of the country. Hopefully, God Bless the USA will still stand as a uniting thing rather than a dividing thing.
I got to know, when you wrote this song, did you think, you know, this thing has a real chance at radio, or, you know, this thing may last for 5 generations? Like, what in the world are you thinking as you're writing it and then as it starts to blow up?
Well, Bobby, you know, the thing is like I wanted to write this since I was a kid, and I lived almost 20 years in Nevada and worked alongside some of the most wonderful entertainers on the planet, and I just didn't seem to have the wherewithal at the time, nor did I have a platform to release anything. But you have to realize this. When I wrote God Bless USA, it was for our 4th album project, You Got a Good Love Coming, which produced a video that did very well on YouTube. The first thing CMT was scrambling for was videos. And so we released that one, even though we had a lot of money in it. But Universal made the call to have God Bless USA be released as a single. It was never intended to do that. My producer, Jerry Crutchfield, and I talked about the direction of my career, about the kind of songs we released, which were many of them heartfelt, about person-to-person love and romance and even crisis in their life. And so that's what we built our career on. And so God Bless USA would have been a real diversion from what we were intending as a career path. However, after its release in '83 and '84, it was embraced by the public. It was embraced as a career song for me, but not for quite a few years. I mean, USA, as you just pointed out, didn't really reach the top of the charts until the whole nation became aware that it was a song for them.
Was it at any point, do you remember a moment where it kind of crossed over and you're like, wow, this thing is actually now not just for folks that listen to country music? Like, what was that instant or that thing they invited you to do where you're like, holy crap, we're in a whole new world now?
Well, of course, Song of the Year in 1985 in Country Music Association. I mean, that was a tremendous tribute, but from the CMA with a song that never hit number 1. And yet, after that, it sort of dissipated. We moved from MCA to Capitol Liberty. At the time, Garth Brooks was over there at the label, and Jerry Crutchfield and I decided to go ahead and move our recording career away from MCA, and MCA put God Bless USA in catalog. So when 2001 happened, 2 things were very important. I had my own theater for 5 years in the Smoky Mountains, and our last show was 2000 in the Smoky Mountains, and we decided not to be in residence there anymore and gave up the theater. Had we not done that, I would have not been able to travel in 2001 when we had the attack on America. And the second thing is, I released an album at Capitol Nashville with my producer's agreement that called American Patriot. And I wanted to put God Bless USA with all of the other American songs. That was a lucky stroke. I mean, because its timing couldn't have been better. When people then looked for God Bless USA after 9/11, the only album they found it on was the Capitol album. They couldn't find it at MCA, and that album went double platinum. And so it was a blessing to me, but I never intended it. It just happened. And so after that, of course, then USA began to gather strength, and we sang it at stadiums, and I traveled with Barbara Bush across the country to uplift the nation. It was just one thing after another, and then it just became the anthem that the country grasped in order to have unity, and that's exactly what I intended. I couldn't have orchestrated it. It just happened.
You wrote the song, if I'm correct, by yourself on the back of your bus. My first question, and I'm going to ask them both at the same time, how long did it take you to write it? And two, do you still have the paper that you wrote it on, pen to paper?
It took me about an hour. We'd finished some concert in Arkansas, and we're heading for Texas on the bus. And normally I would jump in the tractor trailer because I'm pretty psyched after a concert with 5,000-6,000 people, and so I would. The only time I could talk to my truck drivers was when they're driving and we're sleeping. So I would take time after the concert and drive and jump in one of our trucks, talk to the driver for an hour, and get on my bus. And I can remember doing that night, and it was just one of those nights. I guess I'd met some soldiers in our previous show, and it just reminded me of the passion I had to write that song. And yes, it took me about an hour, but I didn't quite finish it till I brought it home and exposed it to my producer, Jerry Crutchfield, and he's the one that actually suggested the lakes of Minnesota, because I wanted to put the hills of Tennessee, and of course I could have said Seattle and Miami, but I was poetic and tried to remind myself of what's important in the geography of the United States. Of course, New York, L.A., that was a no-brainer. Detroit and Houston because of Motown and the auto industry and the oil in Texas, and I just mentioned Texas twice because it's a big state, but to kind of get the geography right, so it only took me a few moments once we had spoken, because you got to realize we were touring all the time, and there was no place to write but on my bus, and no place to record but except MCA Music's recording studio there on Music Row. So we laid down a quick track, and Jerry and I, then talked about what to do with it. And again, it was one of those things that we had realized it's sort of out of place on the "You Got a Good Love Coming" album, because there's some great songs on that album. But we said, well, let's just put it on there because I think that this is a personal tribute to my country. And he said, if you want to do this, we'll do this. And so the second question, do I have the original manuscript? No.
Oh.
There were several scribbled versions, and I took it into the studio, and I don't know, we probably trashed those lyrics. It's too bad I didn't look ahead a little bit, but I've written some handwritten versions since then. There was a couple for auction for St. Jude's and for and Rocketown, Michael W. Smith's charity here in Nashville. But I have 2 copies for my sons that I put in a safe, and so once I leave this earth, they'll have a memory of it in my own hand.
Dang. So I'm going to read some stats about you, Lee, that people may not know. 8 number ones, by the way, which God Bless USA was not a number one. However, the biggest song in years and years and years. However, Somebody's Gonna Love You goes number 1 in 1983. Let me play some of this for our audience here. Going, Going, Gone from 1983. Dixie Road from 1985.
Drifting down the dusty Dixie Road.
I Don't Mind the Thorns, 1985.
I don't mind the cold when I have a fire.
Don't Underestimate My Love for You, 1986.
Don't underestimate my love for you.
Hearts Are Made to Break, 1986.
Oh, it tears me up when you go off.
And Morning Ride, 1986. I gotta say, Lee, all those number ones, and you have CMA Male Vocalist of the Year, 83 and 84. Do you remember who was in the category against you when you won?
At the CMA, the 2 I remember was Kenny Rogers and Ronnie Millsap, and I remember standing backstage with Larry Gatlin, and he said, I think you're going to win this. And I'm like, nah, Ronnie Millsap to me was one of the greatest singers ever. And when they called my name, the only regret I have is that I made no notes. And, when you get in front of a microphone and you're honored in front of your industry and all the peers are waiting for you to say something really wonderful, I just kind of, well, thank you. It's just, you look back at those films and your acceptance speech, but boy, that was really stupid. I wish I had more things to say, but I couldn't remember until I get off stage. And I, wow, dang it, I wish I remember that. There were some great pictures, as I recall, with Chris Christopherson, and I think Janie Frickley won that year, and we have those pictures and memories, but again, that was my only disappointment.
90s country's having a huge resurgence right now. All your number ones were in the 80s, and, maybe eventually the 80s come flying back too, because I think that was it's an underlooked at time for the value that it has been for country music. And with you, I would ask, because we do this thing where we do the Mount Rushmore of favorites. If you were to have a Mount Rushmore of 80s country artists, to you, who are the 4 that you would put up there on that Mount Rushmore?
Barbara Mandrell. I figured she was kind of my counterpart in entertainment because she was just a great entertainer. I remember giving her the People's Choice Award in St. Louis that year. She shared it with Barbra Streisand. I wrote a song that inspired our duet album called We Were Meant for Each Other. The hit song from that album was To Me, written by Mike Reed. So definitely Barbara Mandrell. In the 80s, no doubt Kenny Rogers. I mean, good grief, we toured with him for a couple, 3 years, along with T. Graham Brown and Sawyer Brown, and we were the opening acts, even in Canada, all across Canada. So I admired Kenny so very much, and his impact on my life was terrific. Let's see, 80s. The Oak Ridge Boys as a group,
nice.
I have to tell you, and still my very close friends, had such a movement from gospel to country, and a lot of the gospel people kind of were like disappointed that they had long hair and they were playing music with more of a beat to it, but their success was undeniable, and they blended those two genres together with country and gospel, and they're still my very close friends today. Other than that, I have to look back. I'm certainly George Strait has survived, and Reba McEntire, and we were, by the way, on the same label, all 4 of us.
Wow.
Reba, Barbara, me, and George Strait, and the Oak Ridge Boys. So it's just it was a great stable Jim Fogelson put together at MCA, and we kind of patterned ourselves after the Oak Ridge Boys and the way they toured, because they knew when to reduce their overhead and when they stopped working stadiums, and otherwise we probably wouldn't have survived economically.
Is it true that you bought your first bus from Merle Haggard back in the 80s?
Well, almost. It was Merle Haggard's bus, but it belonged to his wife, who won it in the divorce. And I know that sounds rather silly, but I actually sent my driver out to pick up the bus in California and drive it to me. And that was our first bus before I ever bought a band bus, and then my personal coach. And we were running 3 buses and 2 tractor trailers then finally. And it's interesting that I don't think I looked at the economics. I just looked at the impact. We were carrying our own production, sharing some of the time with the Judds because they were my opening act for a while, and then they also had tremendous impact on the business. And so we toured together for a while. One of our last shows was at the Fox Theater, and Roy Orbison was the star attraction. We were there 4 nights, sold out. He got sick the second night we were there, and the Judge and I finished the engagement, just the 2 of us. But, running those kind of buses, we just kept that first bus for an awful long time, and I finally sold it.
All right, I have 2 questions for you, and then we're going to wrap this up, and I appreciate your time so much. The first one is, I know you visited the White House. What is something about the Oval Office that most people wouldn't know unless they've been there?
I think it's size. As many of the TV shows have depicted in the Oval Office, it looks bigger than it is. It's really not that large. And the second thing is it has several doors. I don't know that people recognize it has like 3 or 4 doors that are, and I don't know if they're made for escape routes. It's a place where the Secretary of Defense can walk in, or his wife can walk in, the First Lady. I guess that was it. Of course, I performed it at the West Wing for the Reagan administration when Bush was vice president, and that's when I met him, and sang at 2 inaugurations, both at the Lincoln Memorial for Bush 41 and for our current President Trump.
My final question is about Charlie Daniels. I know you love Charlie very much. How did you guys become friends?
It's funny because you rarely see anybody that is a big star in Nashville. And at the CMA Awards, it's usually confusing, and there's so many people, so many fans. You don't really have a lot of time backstage, although I always made it a point to get pictures with Charlie backstage, because he's just this imposing figure. He was so gentle. He's just a big, gentle bear. And we'd hug you and just say how things are going. At least we have a minute or two here or there. But we just dearly miss him. He was such a great figure for country music. Always wore that big white hat, and everybody has one song, that they're known for. Now Charlie had many, but "The Devil Went Down to Georgia," of course, he played that every moment that he was on stage to the end of his life. He was as good as he was at the beginning, playing the fiddle. So I had great respect, and yes, I generally met Charlie at a truck stop when we would be on the road touring. And we do that with a lot of acts. You see their bus over there, so we jump out and go and meet with, the artists and get on their bus or whether they get on my bus. And that's a cool moment when we can meet somebody like that.
Well, Lee, I appreciate your time. Congratulations on the new #1, which is crazy to say because that song is such a staple in just our American culture at this point. And it's great to talk to you, and thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me.
Well, thank you, Bobby. I did want to mention about the digital release of 2 albums, Same River, Different Bridge, and Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. It's the first time ever we've, after 35 years of having albums in my career bag, that I'm able to retrieve them and own them and then release them again for the public.
So a Christmas album, new Christmas album out. Well, new but old but new, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, recorded live, by the way.
There it is. Everybody check that out just in time. Lee Greenwood. Lee, thank you. Have a great day, my friend.
Thanks, Bobby.
All right, bye-bye. Hey, guys, it's Bobby Bones. Welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and then go check it out. A lot of artists, a lot of songwriters, a lot of music. Welcome to the Bobby Cash channel.